This morning, you are in for a treat. We have with us this morning a dear friend, Pastor Ramazan Arkan and his wife, Karen, and their boys, Josh and Levi, are with us. Ramazan is one of very few men in Turkey who love Jesus, see him as the king, and has given his life to be a pastor in the land of Turkey. So this morning we're going to get to hear from him and how God has used him and their church in being a practical blessing and also a light for the gospel in the eastern part of Turkey during the earthquake that happened in February. You'll get to be reminded of that. Let me show you a map just so you can orient yourself. If you're like me and a good American, you're probably bad at geography. So Antalya is on the southwest of Turkey along the Mediterranean Sea. If you have a Bible that has maps in the back and you see Paul's missionary journeys, many of Paul's missionaries' journeys were in Turkey. The city of Antalya, where Ramazan and Karen live, is in the New Testament. It's Atalia in the book of Acts, where the Apostle Paul traveled. The 7 churches of the book of Revelation, those are places in modern-day Turkey. In the time of the Bible, it was known as Asia or Asia Minor. So God is taking the gospel back to a part of the world where it began. Long before the gospel ever made it to where we live, the gospel flourished in what is today modern Turkey, then Asia Minor. So Ramazan is going to share the word with us this morning, and he's asked me to read the passage that he will share with us this morning. So let me read to you. This is from the Gospel of Matthew, and this is Jesus in the feeding of the 5,000 men. Hear the word of the Lord from Matthew chapter 14. Now when Jesus heard about the beheading of John the Baptist, he withdrew from there in a boat to a desolate place by himself. But when the crowds heard it, they followed him on foot from the towns. When he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion on them and healed their sick. Now when it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a desolate place, and the day is now over. Send the crowds away to go into the villages and buy food for themselves." But Jesus said to them, "They need not go away. You give them something to eat." And they said to Jesus, "We have only 5 loaves here and 2 fish." And Jesus said, "Bring them here to me." Then he ordered the crowds to sit down on the grass, and taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and said a blessing. Then he broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds. And they all ate and were satisfied. And they took up 12 baskets full of the broken pieces left over. And those who ate were about 5,000 men, besides women and children.
Okay. I think.
Can we welcome Pastor Ramazan?
Thank you. Thank you. Is that open? Yeah. Okay. Good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me again to share the word of the Lord with you guys. I always feel joy and happiness when I come to this church because I know that you guys are really welcoming us. And I know that this church is behind our ministry and supporting and praying for us. I really appreciate it. And that's why I brought greetings to you guys from my church in Antalya, Turkey. And they all pray also for you guys. And also we are so grateful all your support and praying for us. And I just wanted to start with a couple of updates about our ministry. And last couple of years, it was a very hard and also it was a very good year. And there was a lot of way that God blesses our ministry. And we did a lot of good outreach services during the Christmas time, during the also Easter time. And total, we reach out like more than 1,000 people, for sharing them gospel messages. And also 2 weeks ago, it was 2 weeks ago, we baptized 13 people in our church who received Christ from Islamic background. Last time when I visited your church, we had 2 churches in Antalya, Turkey, but now we have 3 churches, and we started our 3rd location on the west of Antalya. And God is working among us. God is working in Turkey. As you know, that Turkey is a very, it was a Christian country, and Christianity spread and grew from the ancient land of Turkey, but now is 99% of the population are Muslim, and there is only 9,000 Turkish believers among 85 million. And we live in Antalya, that there's 2.5 million people live in Antalya. We have about 250 Turkish Christians in whole city. And if you think about it, what God is doing now and bringing His church back and bringing people to Christianity and gospel message again, it gives me a lot of joys and hope. But also we see that God is working, but also Satan is working too. And what happened is last 5 years, Turkey started kick out a lot of missionaries from our country and give them a code that it's called like NAD2 code, which means is you are a danger for our national security. And 3 of the people in our church, they got that code. One of them, he was a leader in our church, and he was very effective person, but now he's not with us, and he cannot come enter the country. And we're praying that God raise Turkish people instead of him for his place, that we can continue. Please pray for our ministry and pray for our church. And I believe that through your prayers and support, God is doing a lot of things. And I just want you to know that whatever God is doing in Antalya, Turkey, through our ministry, you are also part of that. And that's why I just wanted to say thank you so much for praying for us. And I wanted to bring you the words today. It's one of the passage that God spoke to me last 6 months during this time in earthquake relief's help. And this passage that always encouraged me when I look at it. And you can see this miracle in the 4 Gospels, and the Gospels writers, this is the only miracle that you can find in 4 Gospels. And they love this story. They love this miracle that they all put it in their gospel message that Pastor Zach just read it. And before we look into this miracle, let me ask you some questions. Did you ever feel overwhelmed by the problems that you have in your lives? Did you ever think that you can't do anything in the situation that you are in it? Did you ever feel that you are not enough, or you don't have enough things that God called you to do? If you are, I believe that this miracle that we're going to look at will encourage you like it did encourage me. It was one of the miracles that God spoke to me in the last 6 months and gave me a lot of encouragement during when I was doing the ministry and serving Him. As you heard on the news that in February 6th, as a country, we wake up in a very different world. Like we were shocked as a nation, like you experienced in 9/11. And when we woke up in the morning in February 6th, we heard that there was a big earthquake happen in Turkey. Actually, it happened 3 times. And one of the biggest earthquakes that we face in last 100 years in our country. And 11 cities in the east part of Turkey hit by this earthquake. And when I look at the news, that I saw that damages was so big, and more than 1,000 of buildings knocked down, and more than thousands and thousands of people are dead and collapsed. They became dead under those buildings. And the government report says that 58,000 buildings collapsed during the earthquake, first earthquake. 58,000 buildings. And also, according to government report, they say that, total death number is 61,000. Think about it, 58,000 buildings that collapse, which is those buildings are 8-floor, 9-floor apartments. And then there's 61,000 death that they reported. Actually, the damages was so big, and a lot of people after this earthquake, they lost their loved ones. And every time when I watched the news, I saw people were calling help and crying for help to save their loved ones under those buildings wrecks. And also many people on the street, they didn't have any shelter, they didn't have any clothes, they didn't have any food, they didn't have any water. And the weather was so cold at that time. When I saw all these people's situation in my heart, I felt that God is calling me to go to the earthquake area and help those people. But when I felt that calling from God, I felt like, God, it's too far. It's 11 hours drive. And also, look at us. We don't have enough resources. We don't have enough things to do. How can I go and how can I help with all these people? The needs were so big. Damage was so big. And what we have in our church, it wasn't enough. And I thought that we can't do much things. And I didn't listen first. And then a couple days later, when I saw the news again, and that there's still lots of people were homeless and helpless, and they were asking for help, God spoke to my heart again to go to the earthquake area and help those people. And then this time I said yes to God. And even that we didn't have enough things in our resources, we didn't have enough money to buy things for them, we decided to go. And I told the church people that we're going to go to the earthquake area and bringing some help to those people who lives there. And I told them that if you want to bring anything that you have, if you want to bring anything that you want to donate, we can take it to the earthquake area. I was surprised actually how our church responded that. And the next days, people started bringing food, and people started bringing blankets and clothes, even that they were using. They brought it to the church that we had lots of food and clothes and blankets to take to the earthquake area and help for some people. And also, I learned that because the damage was so big in those areas, government evacuated the city and bringing all those earthquake victims to the other cities that they can have a shelter and food. And I learned that a lot of people were also coming to Antalya, and we have a church that we have a guest rooms, and we decided to open our guest rooms for those earthquake victims. And then we received 24 earthquake victims during that time. And we thought that we can provide it shelter for them, but also we started providing food and hygienic supplies and clothes and also their medical needs at that time. And I was so surprised that a lot of people from our church also came and serve in our building to take care of those people, their needs. Some people were cooking, some people were cleaning, some people were helping for other things, and there's a lot of people that they came to help. And then we fill up our cars with the stuff that we collected. And then we went to the earthquake area with 2 cars and with 10 people. And when we get there, I saw the situation actually worse than what I saw on the news. People were hungry, thirsty, and without shelter. They were not just in physical need, also there was a lot of pain and sadness and mourning and sorrows that we face. We set up right away the tent kitchen and with other churches and started cooking for those people and also giving them blanket and clothes. And thousands of people came to our ministry area to get some help. When they were eating and sitting with us, we had a big tent that we set up, and there was a lot of tables that people were sitting there and eating food and socializing. And almost like every first weeks, almost like every 5 or 10 minutes, I heard someone were crying, and I heard someone was shouting so loud because they just got the news that their loved ones were dead. And the situation was so big. And one time when I was driving to the neighboring city to get more help with my van, and one of the police cars stopped me and they asked help. And because their cars were broke and they had some stuff that they have to take it to some area, and we put all these like stuff in their car to my car. And then we drove to this place that there was a graveyard. And there was 2 parts in the graveyard. That one of the part was single graves that people were bringing their loved ones to bury them. But there was also that they dig big, massive graveyard. And I never saw that many dead people in my life. That they were all in there and waiting for the chemical that we were bringing in our car. And I saw more than 500 dead people at the same time there. And I saw also many people that under those buildings and damages. And there was a big pain in people's life. Every day, a lot of people came and asked help from us. Every day, the number was growing. When I saw the crowds, first I thought, how could we help with all these people? How can we cover all their needs or their basic needs? I really felt that it was a task far beyond our capability. We certainly had a desire, but we really didn't see that we had enough resources to bring very much help. But God reminded me those days not to focus on what we can do, but instead on what He can do. Through the story of 5,000 people that He is feeding them with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes. I love this story. As a church, we love this story because this story shows us that how powerful and big our God is. Our God can do anything. There's a lot of things that we can learn actually from this story, not just about the power of God, but there's a lot of good spiritual lessons that we can learn for our individual's life and we can learn for our church. I believe that through this miracle, Jesus wants to shake His disciples and His church to reach out people and help and teach them something. First, when we look at the passage, we see on the context that Jesus received a news that the King Herod had killed John the Baptist, his cousin. And then when he got this news, his heart was sad, full of sadness. And he wanted to go someplace that he can be alone, because they were doing ministry to many people and healing crowds for their sicknesses and problems. And also other account of the gospel writers, when we look at Mark, he tells us that Jesus and his disciples doing a lot of ministry, that they needed rest. And that's why Jesus took his disciples and they wanted to go somewhere that they can rest with his disciples. But somehow we see that crowds found Jesus. They followed him and they came where he is again. And when Jesus saw all these people, the crowds, the passage says that he had a compassion on them. He looked at them and he had a compassion on them. And he saw their needs for him, their thirst and their sicknesses and their pain. And he feels compassion on them and start beginning to ministry to them again. When we look at this story in other gospel, we see that disciples are talking among them. Jesus started to take care of them. And then we see that when Jesus was doing his ministry to them, the time goes and it became so late. And one of the disciples come to Jesus and he tells Jesus, let the people go, that they can go surrounded villages and find some food. On the word, Jesus says, you give them food. Can you believe Jesus' response? You give them food. When we look at this story in other gospel, we see that Jesus' disciples are even talking among themselves about how to do that, how to find a food for all these people. Even we see in Mark's gospel that one of the disciples, Philip, he starts doing mathematical analysis, and he starts counting all these people and counting how much they have, and then he come up with the statement that they don't have enough. They can't take care of the needs. It's impossible. And also time is so late, and there is no places like Walmart or Target that they can go and do shopping for all these people. They were all closed. How they are going to find all these food for those people? How they are going to do what Jesus asked them to do? They must thought that it's impossible to do what Jesus wants. But Jesus immediately performed a miracle over there and solved the problems and provide the people food with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes. There's a lot of good spiritual lessons that we can learn from this. First thing that we can learn, when the crowds came, what Jesus felt is compassion on them, isn't it? When he looked at the crowds, he felt the compassion because he saw their sicknesses and he saw their needs for him, and he started to serve. And in the same way, brothers and sisters, that today when Jesus looked at the world, and when Jesus looked at Turkey and Antalya and the earthquake area, when he saw all these people, and when he looked at the America, when he looked at the Wadsworth in Ohio, when he sees that people that who are in need, he feels compassion on them. And he wants to reach out and he wants to go and touch their lives and heal them and provide their needs. Because Jesus loves them and cares for them. And in order to do that, he wants to use his disciples. He wants to use his church to reach out those people. And he wants to use us today to reach out those people and help and take care of their needs. You see, in this chapter, verses 16, Jesus says, you give them something to eat. Look at the disciples, how they approach to Jesus. And they say, Jesus, it's too late. It's too late. And we can't do anything for them. They give advice to Jesus, isn't it? They tell Jesus, because he doesn't know and he didn't think about it, he tells Jesus, and they give advice to Jesus. Send them away. Send them to surrounding villages that they can go and find the food for themselves. Sometimes we also give advice to Jesus, isn't it? When Jesus asks from us to do something for other people and help them and reach them and provide their needs, we give also excuses like disciples do. Like we complain that we don't have enough things. We are not enough. We can't do. This is so beyond me. This is so beyond my capabilities. I can't do what Jesus asked me to do. And we tell that they can go and find the help from other people or from other places. Here, Jesus gives a beautiful response to this statement of his disciple. And we need to hold on to this. Jesus says, they don't need to go anywhere else. When disciples sent them other places, he says they don't need to go anywhere else. Can you see? If Jesus is there, if Jesus is among them, and if Jesus is with them, there is no need for them to go elsewhere and seek help from others. If Jesus is with us, and if we believe that his power is among us, and then why is there any need to direct people to elsewhere? Well, saying this, Jesus also gives them a command. He says, you give them a food. Meaning that is you need to meet with their needs. The response to this statement was, we have nothing. So how can we do what you say? We often give the same response to Jesus. We have these excuses that we don't have enough things, we don't have enough power, we don't have enough ability, we don't have enough resources to do what you ask us to do. Think about it, there was like 5,000 people before the disciples. That was only men. But also the passage tells us that there was more also women and children. If you add all these numbers too, there was lots of people. When disciples look at this, that there was more than 5,000 people, and Jesus wants them to feed, they must thought that it's impossible. It's impossible what he asked. The disciples say to Jesus, that we have nothing. Only we have 2 fishes and 5 loaves of bread. The truth here is that they think and believe that they have nothing. When they look at the crowds in the front of them, what they have in their hands, it was something so little. In the terms of the world, in the eyes of the world, what they had was nothing. What they had was little. But that was not all they had. Look at this. They had 2 fishes, 5 loaves of bread, and plus Jesus. They have 2 fishes, 5 loaves of bread, and plus Jesus. They did not count Jesus, who is the solution for every problem and answer to every question. Likewise, we often the same thing, ask same question to Jesus. How can we reach so many people? How can we help so many people? How can we solve so many people problems? The answer is actually in the next sentence. Jesus says, bring it to me. Jesus said, bring it to me. What you have in your hand, bring it to me. Bring the little things that you have. Do you see, like when disciples brought the 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes, which what they have in their hand, to Jesus, and Jesus took this and blessed it and broke the bread and gave it to his disciples. Look, the miracle didn't happen yet. He broke the bread and he gave it to his disciples. And then disciples took what Jesus gave it to them. And when they started giving to the people, the bread and the fishes became a multiply. And the miracle started when disciples give to the people. Jesus actually provided the people needs in their crowds through his disciples. When disciples obey to Jesus, and when they brought what they have in their hand, even the little things, they faced the miracles and they saw that Jesus provided what the crowds needs. This is the key verse, I believe, in this passage. Bring it to me. When you bring what you have in your hand, even that you think is not enough, Jesus will multiply and take care of the things. So let's think about, as a church, what I can bring to Jesus right now that he can multiply. What I think in my life now that I don't have enough, but I need his help. Maybe someone you love, someone who has in a difficult situation that you cannot fix, and someone who is injured and broke, someone who is going through a difficult times, that someone you don't know that they need your help. You can bring something to Jesus. You can maybe sit down with that person. You can listen to him. And then you can try to help the time that you have, energy that you have. You can bring maybe something little from yours. And then you will see that Jesus will take care of. And then you can just cry out to Jesus that, Jesus, this is what I can do for this people. And now I need you. Now it's your turn to bless and multiply and make it enough for that person. Maybe you have an economic problem in your life and your family. Maybe you're worried about how you're going to provide your children's needs. and maybe you're worried about like how you're going to take care of all these bills and stuff in your house. Keep working, keep fighting, and try to do what you can do, and then cry out to Jesus. Jesus, this is what I have. This is what I can bring in this situation. I need you to multiply what I have in my hand. Maybe God is calling you to do some service or ministry, and maybe you think that you're not enough. Maybe you think that I can't do this. I don't have a gift. I don't have that resources. I don't have that ability. Use your gift, even that you think that it's little, even that you think that it's not going to impact anything. Bring what you have to Jesus, and then cry out to Jesus, Jesus, this is what I can do. And then you will face the miracles. Because we see in this passage that when the disciples brought what they have in their hands, and then the miracle happened. And after that, what we see is they collected 12 baskets of leftover. After everybody satisfied and fill up with the food. If Jesus is there, if Jesus is among them, solution is there. No matter what the situation or problem you're in, the answer is always Jesus. For this, we believe and ask Jesus in our prayer that what we believe in, and then take the action and bringing what little we have. As a result, you will find that He is doing many things around you and through you in many places. And His name will be glorified and people will see His glory. In the other account of the gospel writers, we see that when Jesus did the miracle and people praised Him and His name. And this is what happened when we obey Jesus. And when we take action, when we bring what little we have, and then He will satisfy people, and He will make miracles, and then His name will be glorified. How do I know that? Let me tell you what I experienced. Let me tell you how Jesus multiplied our 2 fishes and 5 loaves of bread during the earthquake time. When we decided to go and help to earthquake area, in that time we only had $2,000 in our account for the earthquake reliefs. That's how much we had in our account to help those people in the earthquake area. But up until now, do you know how much money we spent to help to those people? $450,000. We started with $2,000, and now we help $450,000 to people. And then we thought that we can only fill up our van and with the stuff that we have that church people brought. And then after we helped those things, we thought that maybe it's going to finish. But we did many times that we don't know exactly numbers, how many times I drove my cars to this earthquake area to bring help to people. Even we bought lots of food and tents and clothes and hygienic stuff with semi-trucks that we send it to earthquake area. After we opened our church in Antalya for the earthquake victims, we thought that we can only provide shelter for them. But also we provide lots of clothes and 3 times meal every day. and their medical needs for 3.5 months. Every day. After all these things that we did, we learned a lot of things from God during this time. We learned that God can do more than we thought. And He can bless and multiply things that we bring it to Him. Experiencing these things, it gives us a lot of joy and helped our church to grow in our faith. And we also experience that God's name will be exalted, and through our testimony. We heard from a lot of victims such a great things about testimony of the church. I have been shocked by how many people have come together to help with earthquake relief effort. People are sacrificially giving of their time, energy, and finances, and whatever they offer God, God multiply all of them, even made a greater impact to those people. I remember one of the lady, when she came to our church from the earthquake area, and she told us that 2 weeks later, she told us that they were freezing after the earthquake. They were in need. They couldn't handle to stay in their city anymore. And then they heard that government will open other cities for the earthquake victims. They came to Antalya. They couldn't find any place to go. And then they contact with us. And then we brought them to our church. And then she said when she was coming to our church building, and she didn't know where she was going, and she was worried about it, and she was so afraid with her kids. And then she said 2 weeks later, God put us in angels' hand. And you guys did a lot of things for us. And we didn't tell those people to come to our church services. We didn't force them to come our prayer meetings. But every prayer meetings and every church services that we had, some of those people who were staying in our church came and joined our services during that time, and they sing the worship songs with us. They pray with us. And some of those people came and they opened their heart to the Lord and became a Christian too. And last week, when I was in the earthquake area, I was bringing water and wheelchair to this family. And then this guy told me, the father, he said that you guys were all same, but also you all different. And I didn't understand what he was trying to say. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, you are all different. I see in your camp area that you have people from Turkey, you have people from America and Korea, Germany. You look all different too. But you're all same. You are so nice and kind and helping us with respect and bringing us all these help. And you're doing this as a volunteer. Why? He said. And I never saw anything like that. And then he started asking me a lot of questions about my faith. And then in the end, he asked Bible from me. And I saw that God work in his life. And I saw actually many people, many testimonies like, I wish I had a time to tell you all these stories that how God used our ministry, our little things, to bring lots of blessing to those people in that area. But I don't have that much time. But I just want you to encourage you, brother and sisters, today, that this is what we can learn from this story. Maybe you don't have enough. Maybe you think that you are not enough. Maybe you feel like you're powerless. Maybe you don't have enough resources. but you have something. Maybe you think that what you have was a little. But don't worry. In your situation, that little things that you have in your hand, bring it to Jesus. If you bring that to Jesus, you will find the miracle like the disciples experience. You will experience the miracle like we did during our help for the earthquake area. But if you obey Jesus and bring your little things, then you will see that Jesus will multiply that and satisfy people, and you will collect the baskets of leftover, and then his name will be exalted. One of the theologians said, if Jesus is with you, you are no longer minority, you are a majority. If Jesus is with you, you are sufficient rather than inadequate, and effective rather than ineffective, powerful rather than a weak. As long as you bring what little you have to Jesus, he will multiply it, bless it, strengthen it, and make it sufficient for the need. I just wanted to encourage you with this word today. Just bring what you have little to Jesus, and then you will see the miracle. And before I want to pray, I wanted to also say thank you so much for helping us to help those people. I know that during that earthquake time, many people in this church, they pray for us. And many people in this church, they pray for my country, they pray for my nation, and also you guys donate a lot of money that we somehow fill up this task. Thank you so much. On behalf of my church, God bless you guys. Let me pray for you guys. Father, we thank you so much that you are with us and you are among us. And if you're with us, we are enough. We have enough, because you can make our little things that we have in our hands and multiply it and provide the needs for the people. Father, I pray that whatever we are struggling now, and help us to bring what we have, and that you show us your glory and your miracle. Father, I pray for this church that you bless them and you use them for your glory. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Thank you so much.
Thank you to Ramazan.